In the book Everlasting Life, Ben Ami's fourth book, there's a introductory study portion which focuses on the Hebrew concept of faith, which is obviously something that's relevant to this topic today. And this introductory study portion, what he does, he breaks down how the Hebrew root words for faith are the exact same as the word for nationalism. They're linked. So faith and nationalism are intimately linked in the Hebrew language. And he explains this linguistically in the book. The reason why it's important, though, is because, the idea of faith, ultimately, it has to be that we have faith in something enough to work for its fulfillment, to work for its common goal, to materialize it, to make that thing happen. And so if you have faith, the metaphor he gives is, for example, in a guitar teacher, you say this guy teaches the best guitar skills in the world. Then that means if you want to be a good guitarist, you'll study under the guitar teacher. You'll learn how to play the guitar like him. Or maybe he's a chef. You want to learn how to be a good chef. So you're going to study under the chef and allow them to teach you. And as you go through this process, you're having faith in them and their ability to teach you, and they have faith in your ability to learn. But you're both kind of like learning as you go along the process. As you learn from this great chef how to be a great chef, right? You see your chef skills improving. You see your dishes tasting better and looking better. You see you're getting more efficient with the process. Then you're affirming your faith. Now that faith that you once had as just an idea is now it's made concrete with your improvement. You're testifying to the value of the teacher. And he's testifying, he's seeing you, he's having faith in you as a student. And as this process continues to unfold, right, you can eventually become a master chef just like him. And so this concept, it's a spiritual concept, because this is how you create in your image and likeness. This is how you produce a righteous society, right? You not just have one person who has a great idea, right? But people have to have faith in the great idea. This is why even Yeshua said, those who believe in my words, greater things shall you do. This is why David, helped to compile and assemble the Psalms. This is why King Solomon was writing the book of Proverbs. This is why the prophets of Israel wrote so much and spoke and taught so much, because they were trying to give people faith in a certain spiritual consciousness, the word of Yah, as you said. And giving people this faith in this word of Yah, they would then be able to internalize it and discipline themselves to apply it in their lives and to share it with others. Because one thing that really hampers or diminishes faith is somebody speaking the word of Yah to you, but their actions being ungodly. And so that means it's the word, yes, but it's the word plus the corresponding actions. Because when they're in conflict with each other, it can actually turn people into atheists. People get turned off. A lot of people they get disoriented because they equate that word with those actions, And so the real holistic science of it is that, as Ben Ami would explain, words create thoughts. Thoughts stimulate energy inside of the body. And an energy, like motivation, inspiration, needs to be expelled. You got to do something with it. So that's behavior, actions. So words create thoughts. Thoughts stimulate energy. Energy inspires actions, and actions produce results. So in the beginning, it was a word, as our brother Yario pointed out. In the beginning, it was the word. The word creates the thought. Now that you've spoken the word to somebody, now there's some corresponding thoughts that are going through their head. They're thinking about what you said, right? Man, that was an interesting thing that the brother told me. And based on what they're thinking about and how they think about it, they're going to be inspired maybe to do something. What they wind up doing determines A, if they even understood the word, but B, how they're going to influence and impact other people with that word. So the intellectual aspect of it, the spiritual verbal aspect of it, is this top layer. But that's what's happening in heaven, in the realm of consciousness and ideas. But earth is the world of implementation. So you have like consciousness and concreteness, ideas and implementation, philosophy and reality. So the word manifests in the physical world in a variety of ways. For this person, the word of Yah interacted with their paradigm, inspired them to be loving, righteous parents for their children, so on and so forth, and motivated them to go ahead and start that business which is a part of the gift that they feel like the Most High gave. For example, right? The vegan chef might feel inspired to go that route. The word inspired them and motivates and pushes them in that direction. Or maybe this other person, the word inspires them to become a seamstress. This person, the word inspires them to become, they need to function politically to help secure better outcomes for prisoners. Like, you don't know what the word of Yah is going to do in somebody else's personal life. It's not going to make everybody just sit in a cave and meditate all day. It'll do that for some people though, you know, but as the word of Yah enters into different people's soul, it activates them to whatever Yah's purpose for their life is. And the point where Yario's emphasis on unity comes in is now as everybody is unifying, that doesn't mean that we're all thinking exactly the same about every subject, because again, Yah's purpose for our life might be different. The mindset of a warrior is different from the mindset of a farmer, which might be different from the mindset of a poet, which is different from the mindset of a governor, which is different from the mindset of a scientist, right? These are different mindset of a clothing designer. They have relative ways of thinking in all these different sectors. If you live in a violent society, it might be better for you to think in terms of defense, but someone who lives in a more peaceful place, that might not be relative to them. So having this understanding that the purity of the word of Yah enters into our human world, where we have all these realities, social, political, economic, interpersonal, etc., creative. We have all these different things. And it's like, how does the word of Yah embody itself in us and inspire us to do things? And then, so where the unity that Ben Ami would emphasize is in, although we will all be doing different things, we have to have a common value system, right? It's a common underlying value system. So there's a lot of room for diversity because humans are different. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be different. We're not all supposed to be exactly the same. But there's an underlying value system where no matter how creatively different from me you are, I still trust that my best interest is in your heart. You know what I mean? And that's what's been complicated nowadays, where the lack of spiritual unity has created a situation to where you can't even trust people's intentions. You don't even know how they define right and wrong. You know, so you just innocently send your child to daycare, not knowing that they want to teach your little boy that he can be a goat or whatever. You know, like they're going somewhere else with where they want to go with society for their interests. And it's pulling us away from our spiritual cultural foundation. So we got to be able to have a spiritual cultural foundation, and we have to be able to see how this message, this word of Yah, then relates to our social manifestation. If not, it's more like a doctrine of personal salvation and individual religious faith, which has nothing to do with a nationalistic whole. And that's not biblical, right? The nationalistic concept of Hebraic consciousness is not, well, you just follow the word of Yah as an individual, and then you get to die and go to heaven because you did what you need to do, and you need other people to follow you so they can die and go to heaven too. You know, it moved into more of an individualistic, pie in the sky theology instead of a communalistic or nationalistic social experience, which was more consistent with the way that the ancient Israelites actually lived as a whole. The Bible doesn't emphasize, it doesn't even talk about you dying and going to hell or you dying and going to heaven. It talks about national disasters which occur from national sin. Deuteronomy 28 talks about what would happen to the nation if the nation violated the covenant. So Hebraic spirituality is holistic, it's social. There's obviously personal application too, like if you eat that, then that's gonna upset your stomach, you know, or set your teeth on edge. There's personal responsibility, but there's how that personal responsibility is multiplied by all the other people around you. That's what's actually creating your situation. And that's why I started off talking about that ecological perspective, you know, that social perspective when I was talking about the rats in the maze and all of that type of stuff. In the beginning, the environment being important, because we're not just individuals doing what we want to do and just, no, we're very much linked to our environment. And understanding spirituality from a Hebraic perspective requires that type of systems thinking.